Welcome, welcome.
I mean, your kid's already in college. You'd think you'd be done with this financial aid stuff, right, Peggy?
It
Just when
never
you
ends
think
until you write the last check.
they're out the door, they're off to college. We don't have to think about this stuff anymore. We're finally done.
You turn their bedroom into a workout room.
Yeah, that's right. And here we are again. Here we are. Don't remind me. Yeah. Well, here's the good news, right? And hopefully that's why a lot of you all have turned in. It's like you've been through this process, right? At least once. But I think after you go through this process all the way through one time, you think, wait a minute, did I do everything right there? Did I complete my financial aid applications the right way? Did I negotiate, appeal for more money? And number one, did I even attempt to do it? Number two, did I do it correctly? If I had to borrow money, did I choose the right loan? Am I paying a higher rate than I need to? I mean, I think those are the questions that a lot of you might be asking yourselves, which is exactly why we are doing tonight's presentation, right? Because I think a lot of folks that choose to navigate this process on their own, the first time through, the more they learn, they might say, you know what, knowing what I know now, if I could go back in time, I would make some different decisions. Here's the great news. It's not too late, right? Like it doesn't matter what you did last year. You can every year is its own animal, right? So you have a real opportunity to maybe right some wrongs here, which is awesome. So, and my name is Matt Carpenter. I'm one of the founders at College Aid Pro. I'm just north of Boston here, and our office is in Salem, Massachusetts. This is our last presentation of 2024. This
It
is it.
is.
So you
You
guys,
guys are our last
and we're
audience.
something like 300 total as a team. Anne Marie was tallying it up earlier. We're over 300 for the year, so pretty
Oh,
good.
wow.
But our job is to help. We like to consider ourselves a source of truth, right? You guys have been through this process, so you hear all this different information, and how it actually plays out usually doesn't align with a lot of the different things that you've heard. So we like to be the source of truth. And our goal for tonight is to help you understand, did you navigate this process the best way you possibly could have? Is there some things you could do differently on your financial aid applications? Is there a way that you can go back and get more money from the college that you're attending? If you borrowed money, can you get a better rate? If you have some resources, do we use the 529 up front? Should we spread it out? And then, we have, and Peggy and I were just saying this offline, we have a deal that we've never even offered before. This will literally be the first time we've done it tonight, where we can take this process over for you. Okay. And we'll talk about exactly what that means. You don't have to do these financial aid applications. You don't have to be the one negotiating. You don't have to be the one figuring out what's the best loan for your family. And we'll talk about exactly what that means at the end here. But that's our get tonight. You're in good hands. Like I said, I'm representing the East Coast. We got Peggy out there on the West Coast, just outside of Seattle. For those of you that haven't met her, this is the real fairy godmother of financial aid in the flesh here. So, Peggy, if you want to say hi, we'll get cooking.
Yeah, yeah. Super excited to be here. And yeah, we're just trying to, as Matt said at the beginning, kind of jokingly, you guys thought you were all done. You're actually never done when you have kids. It goes on. My kids are way older, and you're always a parent. So, but I think being able to support you when you've still got a college age kid and you're still in the middle of all this is cool. We came up with this, and we want to keep supporting you the whole way through. So this is our first time kind of kicking this off. And as Matt said, we've got some great content. I think it's going to be super helpful. So this is who we are. If you're brand new to us, we're College Aid Pro. Matt's a co-founder. I'm the director of education. And this is truly what we do, empowering families to shop smarter for college. Well, you already made your decision. I know some of you might have younger kids, but you made it for the one child, but you're still in the mix. You're still paying every year. So there's still things that you can be doing. So that's where you fit in a major way in our mission. So happy to be here. So there we are, the happy couple. And by the way, I'm from New Jersey. I live in Seattle, but I am a Jersey girl.
I
So
forgot. Sorry,
they're
Peggy. That's
very proud of that.
your
Yes.
most important
Um,
credential. I left it off somehow.
it is. Thanks a lot. You think after these years of presenting, you would have forgotten. It's all good. All right. So everybody got an email today. We were encouraging you to set up a MyCap account. We can see a lot of you did it. Matt's going to put a link in the chat. Excuse me. If you haven't, and maybe you've been with us for a while and you already set it up a couple years ago, all good. If you're in, you got it, you got it. That's all good. But if this is sounding new to you, just click on that link, click get started for free, plug in a few onboarding questions. If you're not sure about every little answer, it's fine. You can change them later very easily. You can put up to 3 colleges. For this audience, you're probably going to put 1 college because your child's already in school. So you're good to go on that front, and you'll be able to use it to figure out appeals and actually to look at how to pay the bill, which we're going to talk about loans here because that
And I'll
might
say,
be
Peggy, the biggest get for you all and why you want to make sure you set up your account if you haven't already. Did you get a good deal last year? Did you get a fair deal? That's a great kind of starting point. So,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, good call. Thanks for interrupting me. I appreciate it. That was
Well,
a great
I
reason.
was, you were
That was
talking
a
for too
great
long,
reason
so.
you actually meant something. So I didn't even let you finish, but it was very valid. So thank you for that. Okay, so get that done. If you've already done it, hopefully you have it open, and that's perfect. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you, Matt.
So look, this is I promise you guys are not here to learn about what financial aid is, and that is not lost on us. We're going to breeze through this, but it's very important to understand, you know, how this whole thing works, and then we're going to drill down on the specifics, which is ultimately trying to help you figure out how to get the best deal possible. What's financial aid? Anytime we get a discount from paying the full sticker price. It could be need-based grants. Need-based grants is completely dictated by your family's financial profile. It could be merit-based scholarships. That's completely dictated based on the student's credentials and how generous or not a college is with giving scholarships. And then the last one, self-help. That is kind of a sexy term for loans, right? So, but those are 3 ways that we can get discounts. The thing that's important to understand here is need-based grants can and will change from one year to the next, for better or for worse, as your financial situation changes, whereas usually merit-based scholarships, it's flatlined for all 4 years. Okay. And you can go to the next slide, Peggy. But when we understand again how need-based financial aid works, every college uses this formula to determine your family's eligible for your family's eligibility for need-based financial aid. And there's a ton of different variations from one school to the next, right? You got to look at it like these are 4,000 different private businesses, right? Colleges are private businesses, and they each operate a little bit differently. But this is kind of the base formula that they use to determine, are you even eligible at all for need-based financial aid? And that is the cost of attendance, or the sticker price for a college. Mine is your family's SAI, or you guys remember when it used to be called a EFC, right? That's a dollar amount that gets assigned to your family based on your family's income, assets, of course, other variables, but those are the big drivers. And if your family's SAI is lower than the cost of attendance, that's the amount of need-based financial aid you are potentially eligible for. And again, that's going to vary in a major way from one college to the next, but something that we see all the time, and this is why it's important to make sure that you're leveraging our technology, is that colleges will under award the amount of need-based financial aid they're supposed to give you. So this year, the kind of the biggest culprit at the moment is Boston College, right? We've had a lot of families get accepted early decision, and they're under awarding almost everybody, but nobody knows that unless they are educated, unless they're uneducated consumer here. Go ahead, Becky. You can go to the next slide, please. And then, a lot of families look at, there's no magic wand that Peggy can wave, that I can wave, that anybody can wave. You're not going to be eligible for need-based financial aid. So how are we going to get discounts? It's going to come from the admissions office. So that's where we want to focus our appeals. That's where we want to focus our efforts. And largely that's going to be driven by the student. how do we go back to that admissions office and increase our merit-based scholarships? Or if we didn't get any, how do we get some? A lot of these colleges have merit-based scholarships for students that are already in college. And a lesser known fact, especially for folks that know they're not going to be eligible for need-based financial aid, they don't complete the financial aid applications when those applications are required even to be considered for merit. So if you're a family that's at a school that you're like, wow, I'm surprised our kid didn't get any merit-based scholarships. We didn't bother doing them because we weren't eligible for need-based financial aid. Maybe you're at one of those colleges that requires the financial aid applications be submitted in order to be considered. So that's kind of the
Yeah,
takeaway.
let me just add in there too, because I just answered a question about private scholarships. Some private scholarships want you to submit the FAFSA as well. This person was like, do we need to fill it out? We're going to do private. Not all of them, but some of them do. So just do it so you're covered and you don't find out later, oh, that's why we didn't get that because we didn't submit the FAFSA. So that's another little tidbit for you.
Tidbit. Go
Are
ahead,
you
Peggy.
done?
Those are my
Okay.
big
All right.
takeaways from the slide.
Okay.
I think you're on.
Okay, so now let's talk about the FAFSA because I think a lot of you potentially haven't submitted it for this year. As you, I'm sure, were kind of following, even though you have an upperclassman child, it went live right around December 1. The kids that are going to be freshmen, they're the ones that have the earlier deadlines, but some aren't very early. They're not until March. So we want to take a few minutes to talk about, say you didn't submit it last year and now you're listening to us and saying, yikes, I probably should have. We want to apply for private scholarships like the person I just answered the question for. So let's talk about best practice because it did a major revamp last year. This year, and it was a mess. This year, it's much better on the tech side, but let's just talk through what you need and what are the rules to submit the FAFSA. So it's live. Everything when you submit for the 25-26 school year is going to be based on the income side on 2023. That's the prior year. So one thing I'll tell you, if you've lost your job or there's anything that makes your current reality worse financially than in 2023, that's a huge reason to be appealing. And or Matt's going to talk about appealing in a few minutes because that's all part of what we're sharing with you tonight. So just if that's you, I'm just turning on that light bulb in your brain. Okay. Um, if you are divorced or separated, only one parent, biological parent, which is called the custodial parent, submits the FAFSA. So you might be nodding your head, oh, yeah, I know, Peg, that's what we did last year. I want you to know that the custodial parent doesn't have to be the same from year to year. And the definition of custodial parent is the parent that provided the most financial support. When you look at when you're submitting that form, so say it's January 15th, it's a year, 2025. It's a year look back. So you have time if you're a family, and I'll go to the next slide because, oh no, hold on. I'm going to go here and then I'll bounce back. Um, if you're a family where the biological parents are close to 50-50 support, financial support for the child that's in college, that's a huge planning opportunity. I didn't share, but I'm a past financial advisor, financial planner. So I'm all about figuring out your planning opportunities and making the most of them. That's a big one. And it's not set in stone. If your child's a freshman now, doesn't mean whoever the custodial parent was last year, it has to be all 4 years. You're not going to lie, but for some people, it's not that hard to say, hey, let's come together. I'm going to spend a little more. We've got some time here. Then we're following the rules and we're putting our best foot forward. One thing to keep in mind is if a parent remarries, that new spouse's information is part of that household. So keep that in mind. It's not just the biological parent. So if one remarries, that might mean that the other parent's better. And this is something that we can help you with, but this is an area where you might be able to improve your situation dramatically from a package you got last year, just by understanding this and knowing that you could honestly change that up. Okay. The other thing, everybody on this, unless you, I know a couple people said that their child took a gap year, so you might not have done this. You need to get FSA IDs and passwords, one for the student for sure, and then for any of the contributors. And those are people that are basically contributing to the student's FAFSA. So here's the URL here. You want to go to studentaid.gov. If you just Google create FSA ID, it'll take you to, and the first thing on the links will be this one, most likely. Just make sure it's studentaid.gov, hit create, go ahead and set up your username and password. I would do that now, just because what happens after you set that up, if you don't have it, is your information gets sent to the Social Security Administration. They verify through your social, your name, your date of birth. I don't even know if they use your date of birth, honestly. But you have to share that you are who you are, and then they approve you. They match you is what the terminology is. You can't do the FAFSA until you have valid FSA IDs and passwords, because that's how the different parties, the student and all the contributors, will get into their FAFSA. So that's something you can take care of right now and get going. So let's talk about the flow, the best practice. Like I said, some of you probably did this last year, and you probably have some horror stories about how it didn't work well because there were a lot of tech issues last year. This is how we recommend that you do it. This is a screen print right from Federal Student Aid, a slide that they showed professional. So what you're going to do is log into the student FAFSA. So you go to studentaid.gov, you go to FAFSA.gov, and it'll take you to another URL, but that's the easiest way to remember it. And click get started on the 2526. Don't scroll down and hit 2425. That was last year. So you want the 2526 for next year. And then you're going to start going through your child's FAFSA. Your child very likely is going to be sitting with you. There's two-factor authentication. So you're going to need codes, just like we all do when we log into Charles Schwab or our bank or whatever. They ping you either email or text with a code. You put it in to verify who you are. So just keep that in mind. You're going to need to get those codes. Personal circumstances, they are going to, the student and the student FAFSA, they're actually going to invite the contributors. So if you're married and you file married filing jointly, one parent's going to get invited. Keep flowing through the FAFSA. Don't stop and go, oh, I got to go get to my invitation. Just keep going. Finish the student part. All the income information will flow directly from the IRS unless you fall into an exception. You have no choice. It will move over. You'll get a nice little screen that tells you it's coming over, and most likely successfully. So those are all these fields you're never going to see and you don't have to worry about. But you will have to share about your non-retirement assets. All of this gets used to calculate your SAI. Then you're going to put in colleges here. Unless your child's going to transfer or there's something different for next year, you're going to put in the school that they go to, right? Just the one school. Then the student is going to sign it. Then you can go over to your email as the parent, and you will have a little invite from your child saying, please contribute to XYZ's FAFSA. You can click on that. If you don't get the email, you can look in your spam or your promotions folder if you have Gmail. But if you still can't find it, don't stress. You can go to studentaid.gov and log into your account with your FSA ID and password. That's why you need this. If you don't have them, that's why I was urging you to go get that set up. When you log in, it's going to look like this. Once you log in, there will be a box that says accept from your child, and then you're automatically linked to your child's FAFSA that you sat there and went through with them. You're linked. You finish your part. You won't be asked the same information that your child already put in. You're going to have some demographic stuff about you. Your financials are going to move over from the IRS. You have to consent and approve for that to happen, for it to be a valid FAFSA. go through some of the same asset questions that your children see. There's a few extra ones like how many are in college and did you get child support? So there's a few extra ones that are pretty self-explanatory. And then you're going to sign. And when you sign, if there's only one contributor that's required, then it all comes together and it's done. So that's what we recommend as best practice. Do the student one, then go over and do the parent one. It's not wrong to do it another way, but we're not going to tell you 3 different ways and the pluses and minuses. It just gets too confusing. Use Chrome. We have found that there's some issues with Safari. People are on iPads. So even if you're on a Mac, that's fine. Just use Chrome. That seems to stop some of the issues. So that's the parent piece. So let's talk just a few minutes about contributors, because this could be different if you did, a lot of you did this last year. So if you've had a change since 2023, a separation, a divorce, whatever it happens to be, this could change. So if you're the contributor and you're married and you file married filing jointly, only one parent gets that ID, because only one tax return needs to be consented to move in. If you file married filing separately, both parents are going to need to get the FSA ID password, because they both have to say, yes, I consent for my tax return to that federal tax information to flow into my section of the FAFSA that's going to be a part of my child's FAFSA. And again, if you're divorced or separated, only that custodial parent is going to get the ID. That other biological parent that's the non-custodial is not a part of the FAFSA at all. Once you consent, you can't change your mind later. You can next year, but I highly recommend you don't, because then your child doesn't have a valid FAFSA and aid won't flow, but it's not revocable in a given year. So that's high level about the FAFSA. Let's just take a few minutes to talk about the tips here, because it's a little bit different than the CSS profile. First of all, no retirement account. So when they ask about assets, checking and savings, obviously that's never retirement. But then they ask for net worth of investments. And that can be really confusing. People putting in their 401k and their IRA. No, it's everything but your retirement accounts and your equity in the home you live in if you own it. If you're renting, don't worry about it. But if you have other real estate, that's the equity in that real estate. When I say equity, that means market value minus mortgages, liens, all that sort of fun stuff. That's your equity. Very important not to overvalue your real estate. You don't want to lie, but there are strategies to get it to the lowest reasonable value. And then you can even take another 10, 15, 20% off with the IRS quick sale value. So again, that's something we could talk through and do for you, and do the form, pump in your assets, right? But that all goes in that category. If you have 529s, college savings accounts, you're only going to include the balance for the child that you're doing the FAFSA for. If you have 3 kids, the other 2 529s are not disclosed. If you're the owner, it's an asset of yours, not your child's. So if you're hearing anything where you're like, oh, I did that wrong last year, it's all good. Take a deep breath. Now you're learning, and we're going to correct it. We're going to
Thank you. Just
potentially
say
correct it.
just say both of those things again, because there's some folks on here that made that mistake.
Yeah, so with 529s, you're only including the value for your child that you're doing the FAFSA for. So if you have, like in my case, I had 2 kids, I had twins, I had 2 different 529s. I only put Brennan's on Brennan's FAFSA, and I only put Shannon's balance on Shannon's. That could be a big deal if you've been fortunate enough to save a lot of money. 1, 2, if you're the owner of that 529. Usually adults are owners and the student is the beneficiary. The owner, it's their asset. So it's not your child's asset, because kids' assets are assessed at 20% and parents are a little shy of 6. So massive difference that can really shoot up your SAI and lower your aid eligibility. So make sure you do that right. If it's grandma's 529 or it's the non-custodial parent, if you're divorced, your ex has it, doesn't go on the FAFSA at all. It's only the parent. If a parent owns it, that's included on the FAFSA, then it's a parent asset. So that's a big one. Number 3, if you're asked the question about work study, make sure you click yes. It doesn't obligate you, but if you're eligible, then it could be available. Not always. Your student aid index, and you might have learned this last year, or slash EFC, that doesn't mean that's the maximum these colleges are going to expect you to pay. That's part of setting up your account. We've got all that built in. Certain schools meet 100% of need, but a lot of schools don't, and they just can't afford it. So you got to realize there's that we call that gapping. So don't expect that to be the only amount. And then I already touched on this with real estate. Make sure you're not overvaluing your real estate, but there's also a question, and all businesses are on the table, even one-man shops like I used to have doing college planning before I joined CAP. They're all on the table, and you have to put your business value. Some businesses have sizable value, and some literally have a zero value, because if that person got hit by a bus, that's the value of their business. If they're a consultant, different types of businesses. So again, we can help you with that piece, so you're not feeling guilty and you put like $100,000 for your business when in fact it's much less than that, or zero. And then of course, just like everything in this process, do not miss deadlines. So there's going to be deadlines for upperclassmen to submit the FAFSA and the CSS profile if that's applicable for your child's school. So just if you miss those deadlines, and I've seen it, I saw it at USC with an upperclassman mom who came to me for the first time. I had never met her, and she's like, I got $10,000 more last year. What is going on? And I went in and went through, I couldn't figure it out. And then I said, did you miss a deadline? She said, yeah. And I'm like, now you got to go beg and fall on the sword because you missed a deadline. That's why they're giving you less money. So just don't do that. CSS profile, I just mentioned it. If if you submitted that, say your child goes to Syracuse and you submitted that last year, I know for a fact because I helped a mom for 5 years. She had an architecture child. She came to me every year and we did the forms together. So they required the CSS profile and the FAFSA every year. FAFSA is always every year. CSS, it depends on the college. But a bunch of them will want it every year. A lot of you did this last year. It's a pain in the butt form. It really is. It's very long. It's
Hey,
very
Peggy,
invasive.
I'm sorry to interrupt again, but are you proud of me? I made it like 20 minutes.
You did. You did a good
Um,
job.
Thank you. New personal record. But we're getting this question a bunch of times, and you may have already said it. I've been very busy in the Q&A. But just to be clear, if you're a divorced or separated family, whether you have been for a while or you're in the middle of this, right? Maybe it's you just got separated, you were together last year and now you're not, or you're in transition. It is completely normal and it is fine. And oftentimes it makes sense to change who completes the FAFSA from one year to the next, right? So just because you completed a certain way last year, the last couple of years, it does not mean you can't change it moving forward. So we've got a bunch of different questions that were kind of in that theme. But to be very clear, that's the answer, right? No problem with changing who completes the FAFSA in split household families.
Yeah, that's where the planning comes in. If you can make it so that, say, you're a better person to submit right now, pay a little bit more for your child. It could literally be $20 more for soccer. If you're close to being even, and then you're now the custodial parent for the next FAFSA. And then if that's the best way to do it, then just make sure you fall into that bucket the rest of the time. And yes, I know it's confusing with the FSA IDs and passwords. Each individual gets one. If a parent already has one from an older child or going to college, that's yours. That's tied to you. But if you have quads, which I haven't seen anybody at our webinars, you need 4 of them, right? Each student needs their own. Each parent needs their own if they're both contributors based on what I shared before. Okay. Now let's talk about some tips for the CSS profile. And some are similar. And this is meant to be if your child goes to Syracuse, like I said, and you're going through this again, you might have made a mistake last year. So they're not always the same as the FAFSA. The first thing on the CSS profile you might not have remembered from last year, there's a lot of questions that are not required. So if it's not required, there is some strategy around this, because sometimes I tell people to answer a not required question for a very specific reason when I'm working with them. But in general, we tell people pay attention to that. If it's not required and it's not really benefiting you, you don't have to answer it. The required questions you absolutely need to answer, and you need to answer them honestly. So keep that in mind. Same thing about not overvaluing. But the thing about the CSS profile that's different than the FAFSA is all your real estate is on the table. So they're going to ask about the home that you live in if you own it and you're not renting, when you bought it, the market value. That market value is key. Make sure you're not overvaluing your real estate, and we can help you with that. Now we're going to talk about 529s again. So you remember what I said with the FAFSA, only the student that's going to college. Just to make things fun and confusing for all of you, the CSS profile requires you to put all of the balances in there if the parent is the owner. That is the same. Grandparents don't go there. But if the parent who's submitting the CSS profile with the student is the owner and you have 3 kids, the balance in full goes there. So that's different than the FAFSA, okay? The CSS asks you a question, which every parent says, how much can you afford to pay for the next school year? So it says for the 25-26 school year, be really careful how you answer that question. If you put a number higher than what they think you can afford, you're now going to pay that. Instead of maybe getting aid, if you put 60,000 and they think you can pay 50, you're going to now pay 60. So you need to be really, really careful how you answer that. That's why it's important to be in the software and to know. You might have an idea from last year, you might not. And that's where if you meet with us, we can back into, hey, this is what they think your SAI is. And they might have called it an EFC still, but that's really valuable. So you answer this question correctly. They ask about what's going to happen in 24. It's almost over. They ask you about 25. Don't overestimate any future earnings. Put what you know 100% sure. If you're a contractor and you've got work through the end of February and you have no clue, you're not going to put the rest of the year for 2025. There's a special circumstances section, if you remember, on the CSS. Leave it blank. Okay. This says after acceptance into college, because we talk to a lot of people that are, rising freshmen in college, but it's still valid for you guys. You could have a change in circumstance and you're going to reach out to them. And Matt's going to go over that right now, but you don't want to keep that in your pocket so that you can pull it out. Don't leave that card to play later. Don't spill your guts on the CSS profile. And then just like the FAFSA, don't miss deadlines for the same exact reason that we talked about with the FAFSA. It just can be extremely, extremely punitive. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to you, Matt. You're muted, buddy.
Ugh, that was like my best line of the night too. It wouldn't be authentic if I said it again.
I read your lips, so I know what you said.
Look, the first thing that you want to do is to determine, did you get a fair offer? Did you get a good deal last year? Or if you have a junior in college, the previous years. And let me just share my screen really quick here, Peggy, if I could.
Sure.
Um, so here's what I want to show you. Give me a second. But so within your accounts here, within your College Aid Pro accounts, right? And now for you, this is an underclassman, right? That are still in the process of shopping for colleges. You're probably only dealing with one college, but you want to complete your profile 100%, right? Make sure your profile is complete. And we're going to give you a really good idea of what would we expect you to get in terms of financial aid, in terms of scholarship from whatever college you're at, right? Like I've seen hundreds of colleges that you guys have applied to that on this webinar right now. That's kind of where you want to come from in terms of a foundation. Have I been getting a good deal so far? Another way that you can do this to get even more specific, in this part of the platform we call Translate and Compare, we give the opportunity to actually upload. You can upload last year's financial aid award letter here, and we will tell you, did you get a good deal? Right. And obviously it'll allow you to gut check it here. So you can kind of manually put in, here's our income, here's our assets, what should I get from Boston College? But you can actually upload your award letter and we'll tell you down to $1 how far off, how much better, how much worse, or were you on the nose in terms of how this college says they do business versus what a family that has your profile actually gets. So that's all I wanted to show in there, Peggy. But I just wanted to this is where you guys can kind of gut check and have a watchdog, a third party watchdog. And by the way, that's all data driven, guys. We have full-time employees that their only job description is to make sure that the data is as accurate as possible. So I don't think you're going to find a better kind of third party unbiased, subjective analysis to say, did we get a fair offer? Um,
Yeah, and honestly, we're here to advocate for you. The colleges are banking on, like Matt mentioned, BC, they're banking on you not really knowing. So if they give you $15,000, you're like, this is amazing. That's a lot of money. When in fact, they should really be giving you 30. And I'm making up these numbers, right? But happens all the time. The less knowledgeable you are, they're in the driver's seat. And we're here to advocate for you so that you are armed with this information.
all right, Peggy, let's see, next slide here. So, and I forget what the slide is. Usually I'm out ahead of it, but
We're
relatively,
talking, you can see it, right?
I'm still seeing the evaluate your financial aid award
Oh,
offer.
oh, oh, yeah, because I didn't move it
Get with the program. What is it? What did we say before,
between the
Peggy?
two of us. It's like the dog and pony show.
Get with the program. You know what, Peggy? Maybe we're worn out. Maybe after
Yeah,
300
I think it's
presentations,
time to
we're
take a little break. Yeah, exactly.
there's not enough left in the tank. So look at the number one takeaway is when you get an offer from a college, you should always push back. And obviously, there's some exceptions, but there's so few. I'm not going to waste calories on it tonight. We should always go back and be asking for more money. We're not going to use the word negotiate, even though that's what we're doing. We're going to use the word appeal. And I'm telling you right now, guys, it's not necessarily too late to even appeal for more money for spring semester. Your odds are very low. Let's be clear here. But when we talk about next year and what are some things we could do differently moving forward, we always want to appeal. And these are just some, Peggy and I do full hour presentations and more on how to appeal effectively here. But these are a few kind of major talking points, right? We need to bring color to it, right? It's a numbers game for them. We need to make it a more human process, right? We need to let them know the best day of our lives was when our kid got accepted at their top choice. The worst day was 2 weeks later when we get the financial offer and we found out that this is going to cripple us financially, our kid and us as parents, right? We need to spoon feed excuses for these folks to give us more money, right? um Thank you, we're getting a nice compliment there. I guess somebody worked with us last year to help just for the appeal, and that's why a lot of people hire us, help us go back to these colleges to get more money. But should we be doing this with the admissions office? Should we be doing it with the financial aid office? Should it be both? Should it be the parent driving the conversation? Should it be the student driving the conversation? It's important that we ask for more money, but we're not going to get more just by asking, right? The level of sophistication in our appeal is going to dictate the odds of how successful or not we are. And again, these are some of the biggest talking points. We need to ask for a specific amount. You guys are already in college, so we probably can't leverage colleges against one another. But there are still things that we can do to squeeze more juice out of these guys, again, even though we are already in college. All right, Peyton, we can go to the next slide here. Okay, so again, that takeaway again, the point of that slide is just say if you didn't negotiate, and again, you're not going to use the word negotiate. If you didn't appeal for more money last year, do it moving forward. Okay, and again, there's a method to the madness, but we don't have time to unpack all of them tonight. But now let's talk about paying the bill and let's talk about borrowing. Everybody, regardless of your financial aid eligibility, I don't care if you're a billionaire, and if you're a billionaire on this presentation, friggin' get lost, right, Peggy? You're doing fine. Go ahead and donate. Give a donation to your alma mater. But my point is, Everybody, regardless of your financial means, your income, your resources, etc. If you complete the FAFSA, you're entitled, you are guaranteed to get $27,000, okay, over the course of 4 years in this federal direct student loan. Now, this is your student that's going to receive this. I make the firm recommendation, I'll die on this hill. I will die on this hill that every single student take advantage of this program. I have a ton of reasons, but I'm going to give you one or two. Okay. Number one, if you want your kid and or need your kid to have some skin in the game, and by the way, I think that's a awesome thing. Okay, I'm a huge fan of that, and there's a lot of data to support that being advantageous. This is where you're going to start. You're not going to find a loan that again, this loan is just in their name. They don't need a cosigner. They don't need established credit. They're not going to get a bill until 6 months after graduation, and you are not going to find more flexible repayment terms. Okay. If you need to borrow or you want your kids to have some skin in the game, you start here. If you say, guess what? I don't need my kid to borrow. I don't want my kid to borrow. I'm still going to make you take this loan. Why? Because you're going to take it out each year. You're going to pay it off instantaneously, okay, before any interest accrues. Now your kid's going to graduate with basically perfect credit, okay, just because you ran through some administrative stuff and cut through some red tape. So for one of those two reasons, right, everybody, every single person should be taking advantage of this. And guess what, guys? Even if, let's say, it's not too late even for this year, even for this year. Of course, you're going to do it for next year, but for this year, you can still complete the FAFSA and have your kid take advantage of this program. So keep that in mind. Um, okay, Peggy, next slide here. And I think, yeah, I said it.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
you
need to
pretty much
double down
covered it.
anymore. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so here are some steps, some other things that I'm going to talk through here quickly, and I will put a separate link in the chat here, and I'm going to give you a visual in a second. But for those of you that borrowed last year, or whether or not you borrowed last year, most people that borrow in our experience, you go through this process, you're just flying blind. You're like, okay, I get the most inbound emails from Sally Mae, or I called the financial aid office and they said take out a plus loan, or I live in Massachusetts and I listen to sports radio and I hear about the MIFA loan, right? Most families don't take out don't do the homework to figure out what's the best loan and rate for my family. So these are the steps. I'm going to walk you through these steps. And again, we have a link that I just put in the chat. If you scroll down a little bit, we'll walk you through these. Number one, now we're not recommending you apply for all three of these loans. Don't apply for one or two. Okay, so these are for right now, and private student lenders are always changing because they're always competing with one another, right? So College Ave is going to compete with Sally Mae, and then SoFi is going to get in the game, and then Ascent's going to get in the game, and so right now, as far as we know, right? And again, not that we are perfect in our subject matter expertise for private loans, but these are the three best options in the private student loan marketplace right now. Apply to one or two of them. It's pretty common that they're going to be at least competitive, but apply to one or two of them to see what your loan rates and repayment terms are going to be within the private student loan marketplace. Then you can compare that with the federal option. Okay. Now, the federal option, there's some good things, there's some bad things. I would argue one of the best things about the federal option is it's transparent. We know exactly what it is. We don't have to apply for it first. There's no games, there's no range based on our credit score and how strong or not our application is. But guess what? The rate is over 9%. It's 9.08% this year. And there's a 4% origination fee. So effectively, it's a 10% loan. And that friggin' stinks, right? So that's why you want to see what you would be eligible for here in the private marketplace. And then there are also there's about 20 states that offer loan programs. But of those 20 states, most of them you either have to, I'll use Vermont as an example, okay? They have a really good program, but you have to be a resident of Vermont or your kid has to go to college there. Okay, so maybe you live in Florida, but your kid goes to UVM. Great, you can use Vermont's program. These three states that we're flagging here, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Iowa, which always throws me for a loop. It doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter where your kid goes to school. You can borrow through these state programs. Okay. Um, so I guess the biggest takeaway here is do your homework, be an educated consumer, go find out what rate and repayment terms you would get in the private sector. Go find out how that compares to the um, federal loan option, and then you go see what your state options are. Right now, again, I'm going to. As a matter of fact, I think is there another slide after this, Peggy, or I'll kind of share my screen next. I think.
Yeah, no, there isn't. So I
Okay.
will stop sharing
So
now.
so so here's what we're gonna recommend, guys. Now look at this, and like I said, I flagged it at the beginning. We have not done anything like this before. Um, and I'm gonna get back to the loan options, but let me talk about kind of the main things first. And Peggy, you can share this slide. But so we're
Yeah, I'm
offering
about to do it again. It's in
this.
there, bottom of the chat.
This is the first time we've done this. Okay, we are offering what we're calling kind of like an annual checkup and CSS profile renewal package. If your student is in college, we're charging $500, but if you purchase this tonight, you get $100 off. Okay, so it'll be $400, 399. We will complete your FAFSA and your CSS profile for you. If you've already completed it, we're going to review it to say, did you make a mistake? Guess what? You probably did. But we're going to review that. We will help you with the appeal, right? We will help you figure out what loan is going to be best for your family if you're somebody that needs to borrow. If you don't need to borrow, and for example, you have a 529, we'll help you make decisions like should we exhaust it all? Should we spread it out over the next couple of years? Should we poach from a younger student? We're going to have firm recommendations here. Did we get a good deal last year? Right? Is there a possibility that we could get more money for the spring semester? And I don't want to tease that as a likely option because for most folks, you're locked in, right? That said, it happens. And oftentimes, when we look at how you completed last year's FAFSA and CSS profile, we could find a mistake that we can bring to the college and get a better deal even for this year. Forget about next year, right? We're going to do 20 of these tonight. Okay. We're going to do this for 20 families because this is a newer, like I said, a new kind of product for us to kind of see how it goes, but this is what we're going to deliver, and you guys can see it. In addition, you're going to get a list of 1,500 private scholarships that are just for in-college students, which is pretty cool, I think. Um, and then again, we're going to help you be like, all right, if you borrowed last year, was that the right option for your family? You took out the plus loan. Can we do better than that? You took out Sally Mae. Can we do better than that? Whatever it happens to be, but don't over rotate on this one, guys. I mean, your worst case scenario is that you pay $400. We do all your financial aid applications for you, right? You're done with that. We make sure that you got a good as deal as possible. We make sure that you're borrowing or using your resources the exact way that you should be, and we give you this list of 1,500 private scholarships for just in in college students in an hour with one of our experts, right? Like, don't overthink this one. Believe me, if anything, we're that's why we're capping it at 20 because we're not sure that we're that it's the right thing for us, but I'm confident it's the right thing for you guys. If you have more than one kid in college, right? If you have more than one kid in college, it's going to be $300 for the additional student. So you'll just sign up tonight and then say, we have two kids in school. We will invoice you for the second kid. Or what you can do is just sign up for one kid and say, we're just going to kind of copy what we learned for this one kid and use it for our other kid and do their FAFSAs, CSS profile, etc. So you can decide how you want to do that. I saw there was a few underclassmen here. If you're an underclassman and you want us to do basically the same deal, it's $1,500, right? So it's a different price point because we're dealing with more than one college. We need a lot more information for you. We don't have last year's kind of foundation in place. So that's why we only marketed this event for in-college students, but that's the deal. I will share it. I will put it in the chat here. But if you are do not have if you're not already in college, but you kind of found your way onto this webinar, obviously the price point's much different. Apologies for that, but it's a different. You're just at a different stage. Okay, but for you that already have one in college, don't overthink this one. We're gonna go
Yeah,
in.
can you show them how to do it, Matt? Because
Yeah.
somebody's saying, how do I pay?
Yep.
So
So in
can you
this link,
flip through and show them?
if I say get started today, guys, it's gonna bring you right to your checkout page. It's gonna say add promotional code. What was the code? Check
Check
20.
20.
So there you go.
Yeah,
Check
don't
20.
forget to pop that in there.
I say apply. It's going to take $100 off. There you go. 39.99. Put your information in. You're off to the races. Okay. As soon as you sign up, you'll get a confirmation. But then tomorrow, you'll hear from our office. It'll either be Jackie or Lisa, and they'll say, "Here's what information we need from you." It's not very labor intensive, and then you'll get us over the relevant information that we need. We'll get your meeting scheduled, and again, we're off to the races. But guys, I would tell you, we're coming up on the holidays here. This is the best Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Festivus, whatever present that you can get for yourselves, right? Like, if nothing else, gut check it. Even if you pay, again, 39.99 and say, hey, these guys are doing my FAFSA and they told us we did everything perfectly and we didn't leave any money on the table. There's real value in that. But guess what? For most of you, you're going to get a tangible ROI and you're going to get more money back than the investment that you make in us. You got to buy it tonight if you want the $100 off. And again, and just buy it now because we're only taking 20 because we don't know enough yet if we're kind of losing our shirt here um, or not. But yeah, don't overthink this one. Okay. Now, like I mentioned, if you know that if you're looking for to take a loan for the second semester, here are those steps, and we have the links kind of all built in here. So apply for one or two of the private student loan options, see what those rates come back at. Again, all the links are right in here compared to the federal, and then again, if it makes sense, the state options, right? But that'll be
Yeah, the
again.
federal one is the plus loan is very easy to do and the response is very quick. But as Matt said, it's a pretty crummy loan most of the time. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
yeah.
Yeah, so I think I mean let's see I'm trying to think did I miss anything here but I mean look the point is that if you've done this process on your own so far or even if you haven't, let us sanity check it. Let us sanity check it to say, is there anything that you can do that can save yourself a couple of bucks moving forward? I guarantee you the answer to that question is yes. And then in addition to that, you don't need to worry about if you didn't enjoy doing the FAFSA and or the CSS profile, let us take care of that for you. And again, I'm not saying it's nothing, but if you're an underclassman for the same kind of product, you're paying $1,500 for you guys. And you guys can go check out our website, and that's what you'll find. But if you sign up tonight, at least the first 20, $3.99.
If you put in the promotion code and it charged you wrong, just email us at support@collegeaidpro.com. Our support team
They're
just
all
did,
over it.
yeah. Yeah, check 20. Yeah, it should take 20% off. We'll take care of you tomorrow. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But email us at support@collegeaidpro.com. And Matt, I know we're sending them a list of scholarships. That's coming out with the email. Is that right? That
Yeah,
we promised?
anybody that signs up will get the what is it, the $1,500
Yeah.
private scholarships as a part of your meeting there. And it looks like we got about four left. So, and everybody's going through, just about everybody's going through correctly with I can see the coupon codes are working. I can see two folks, they didn't, we will honor that, of course. Um, Yeah, but again, we got a handful left of those. So guys, don't overthink this one. Again, this is ultimately this is a holiday present to yourselves, so you can take this off your plate, and at the very least, make sure you're like, all right, we did everything perfectly. And again, in most cases, the answer to that is going to be, hey, we have a couple recommendations that are going to make you guys pay less money for
Yeah, and
cover.
somebody asked about who are our experts. We have people, I personally have vetted all of them, Matt as well. We have people that are currently at colleges. Um, we have the ex-financial aid director at USC. These are people that have been doing this work for a decade plus. They literally can do financial aid forms in their sleep. Um, we've gone intentionally all over the world to find the best and brightest. So our
Yeah,
team
Peg said
is
it right. You can meet with the director of financial aid at Harvard, MIT, former director at USC, former director at Denison, current director of scholarships at University of Oklahoma. Um,
so
again,
there's people at colleges, yeah, and people are actually approaching us to be on our team. People want to be on our team. They want to be a part of us. So these are people that really they're not on our team unless they know their stuff. We know what we're doing, right? We know how to do things right, how to put your best foot forward, how to catch something that maybe can help you get more money next year. That's really how we're trying to support you.
no.
Yep, we will take care of you. So have a good night, everybody. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Happy holidays, guys. Enjoy.